basically you control the frame, you control what and there's some triggers that people understand and they're going to follow, and they're willing to follow it. So you need to make sure that it's not too obvious in games how you control people. But there's a couple of things that I always say to people. It's people are attracted by lights and by blood. So if they see like it's like Mario, you see a little thing you want to jump on. Basically, if you follow the enemies, you're going to finish the level. If you see a light, if there's a light on the door, well, this is where I need to go. If it's dark, then why did you light that door if it's not the so there are certain cues, colors, or even like on Assassin's Creed, you can have like big buildings. If it's at the Coliseum, it's the biggest building in the game. You're sure that there's some action going at the Coliseum. People and it's really easy. Oh, let's get to that guy in the Coliseum. Okay, finish that. Okay, I need to get to a guy in the Coliseum. Coliseum is right there. Let's go. So you need to create those landmarks that people go, and so those landmarks are great because it creates a sense of it's not the same exact space everywhere. So visually it's different. It's going to create like milestone that I can see. I can reorient myself, and once if you use that correctly in your scenario, then people are directed toward those places pretty easily. Same thing for you had that one thing. It's an interesting anecdote, but on Assassin's Creed 2, there was that thing where the buildings were way higher in Venice, like four floors high, versus Assassin's Creed 1, where it's with basically just one building, one floor or 2 floor max. So there was not a lot of wall climbing. And we realized that nobody was going on the rooftops on Assassin's Creed 2. So there's a big problem because every time that on rooftops, it's fun because you're over the crowd. And what makes Assassin's Creed special is that ability to be like on the rooftop, looking down, going up in the street. So that sense of verticality in that platforming makes the game unique. So nobody was going. And what we had at that point was the kind of we called it free running highways, where it's basically a sequence of free running, and it would basically go up and go down, and you could take it on from both sides. And we realized that if you just start taking that free running highway and just press forward, you would end up back on the floor. So what we did is we actually cut half of the highways. So every time you would start doing free running, you would end up automatically on a rooftop, stuck. Oh, I'm on a rooftop. So that's one way, for example, that we used for leading player to the fun area. As soon as you start doing that, you end up guaranteed on a rooftop. And once you're on a rooftop, you go like, okay, so that's the end. Ooh, rooftop. Ooh, it's fun. And nobody, it's the kind of stuff that nobody noticed. But when you play it, it's the little hint like that nudge you toward like, oh, and you don't. It's not about removing control. In that case, the player still has the control to go wherever he goes. But it's just to invite him or to remove the option of, don't go back on the ground. Don't go back on the ground. You can go back on the ground on the other side of the building, or you can just redo your road, but nobody's going to come back on their road. They're already on the rooftop. They're going to continue. It's a little trick like that orient players without them necessarily feel like, I have like handcuffs and I need to follow this corridor, closing all the doors. But at the same time, it's not about facing 3 doors and not knowing where to go. That's the worst. It's not freedom either. So it's important to balance both. Where if games are about making an interesting choice, then it's to facilitate what are those choices and how can I take those decisions. Then the game is really going to be a good experience.